Hello, hello, good evening, good evening. Welcome to tonight's 10 to 13, 8 o'clock webinar. Um, my name is Sean. I'll write it in the comments for anyone who arrives late. Is Sean. My name is Sean. I come from Ireland. And I work in Milan in the school on Via Meravigli. Where do you come from? So I would love for this webinar to be as interactive as possible. Anyone and everyone who comes, can you please say your name, where you're writing from, where in Italy, where in France, where in Spain? I'm very curious to know about the kind of people that tune in to listen to me at 8 o'clock on a Monday evening. Hopefully, you'll be interested because I think today's topic is quite interesting. Today, I'm going to be talking about the arts. So this is a focus talking about different arts, kind of defining the word arts, because there's a lot of words related to arts, and it can be a bit confusing, the exact meaning of the different senses of the word, exactly the definitions, what falls under this category, this subject, and vocabulary for describing art. This is a high level focus because I think to really discuss art is something that you need quite a high level in any language to do. So if you can learn these words and phrases, you will appear very impressive in your command of English, I think, because to speak articulately about art is very challenging and very different in every language, I know. I studied in university, I studied art history. So this is a topic which is very familiar to me. I can speak about it a lot, and I'm happy to do so for the hour. But I would love to have your opinion about everything that I bring up. Any questions you have about vocabulary? Certainly, some of the words in this focus will be new to you because they're very particular to this context. So, any questions, any words that you're not sure about, absolutely send in a comment. I will respond. I'm here to answer questions, and yeah, a lot of these slides are kind of questions that can trigger a bit of conversation. So, just to warm up a little on this topic, we have what is art? So, I'm going to challenge you in the comments, define art. What is your definition of art? What do you think makes something art? It's really a philosophical question as much as a linguistic one. What is art? What do you think it is? It's personal as well. I think I'll reveal maybe the first answer that we have on this slide. So, one meaning of art: the quality, production, expression, or realm according to aesthetic principles of what is beautiful, appealing, or of more than ordinary significance. Yeah, this is interesting. I think we do think about what is beautiful and appealing with art very often. But of course, when you think about contemporary art, that's not really the case anymore. But I think a lot of things are covered by of more than ordinary significance. I quite like that, of more than ordinary significance. So something that is special. I think art is special. I think that you'd have to be very cynical to disagree with that. So yeah, and the quality, the production, the expression or realm. So I mean, once upon a time in history, you could talk about sculptures, you could talk about paintings. Now anything and everything is art. The way people behave, performance, um, objects that people find. Many artists define this kind of thing as art. It depends how open you are to the way the contemporary art challenges the kind of more traditional definitions. So yeah, the quality, production, expression, or realm is interesting. So producing what is of more than ordinary significance, expressing that is art. I do agree with this definition personally. Do you agree? Please define art and let me know if you agree about the definitions here. So another suggestion we have here, the class of objects subject to aesthetic criteria, works of art collectively as paintings, sculptures, or drawings, a museum of art, an art collection, fine art, commercial art. So I think this is a more practical definition of art, really. The class of objects subject to aesthetic criteria. What is aesthetic criteria? Concerns about beauty, about visual appearance. Anything aesthetic is visual. The study of aesthetics is the study of visual phenomena. And yeah, works of art, paintings, sculptures, drawings, the collecting of art, museum of art, the collection, fine art, commercial art. I think, I mean, this language is complicated, but interestingly enough, when language gets complicated in English, it kind of gets a bit closer to Italian or French or Spanish because it looks more to the Latin roots and Romance roots, which to native English speakers seem complicated. But I often find that Italians sometimes find this kind of complicated language easier because it relates more directly to Italian. So we have Martina from Bologna. Hi, great to have you, Martina. Art is a way of expressing yourself. Yeah, I agree, 110%. I can't think of any other way to define art in this moment in time. It's about, yeah, saying something about yourself in whatever way that you want. So yeah, expressing yourself. We have expression here in the first definition, but yeah, it's about conveying something of yourself through an object, maybe. I'm not sure. So we will continue on through these definitions. We have number 3, a field, genre, or category of art. Dance is an art. So this one is much broader. And this is kind of getting to the core of the name of this focus, arts, where when we talk about the arts, we're not really talking about visual art or fine arts. We're talking about culture. We're talking about things like dance, music, theater, visual art, a very broad category of kind of human cultural activity becomes discussed under terms of arts. Even further in university, you can study arts and humanities or science. And arts and humanities are things like philosophy and history and things concerning humanity and human civilization and culture. Whereas science is obviously empirical, the study of numbers or natural phenomena or chemicals or things that they study in the sciences. So yeah, a category, a field, a genre. Yeah, interestingly enough, we can also use field in this sense because you probably know field as in the countryside, but it also means a genre, a category, a field. Number 4, the fine arts collectively, often excluding architecture. So you can talk about art and architecture, which is, yeah, there is very often a distinction drawn between art and architecture, which some people think is correct, is how it should be. Other people disagree. Other people think that architecture is just as much of a artistic, expressive, creative field as fine art. You have similar discussions when it comes to fashion. I think what is a bit different with fashion and with architecture is that there are practical and functional concerns that you don't have with fine art. You know, a dress or a building. You know, you have to be able to wear a dress. You have to be able to live in a building. A sculpture can just be whatever it is. It doesn't have to fulfill any criteria of usage. So that's a difference. But some people, I think, would be very would consider architecture and art. I'm not sure. I think it is and it isn't. I think all of these questions and definitions certainly very complicated. And then we have another definition. Any field using the skills or techniques of art, advertising art, industrial art. Yeah, I mean, they talk about, I mean, if you work in advertising, you need to be able to create images. And it's the same in industry, graphic design. I mean, are these things art? Are they not art? Often you study graphic design and creating images for advertising in the same institutions, in the same universities as you study fine art. But I think very many people would reject the idea that advertising is art or artistic. I myself, I think I don't really accept the idea that advertising is artistic. It can be interesting, but I don't really. I think the fact that it has its function level, anything that has to fulfill a very distinct function, like architecture or fashion or advertising. For me, it's different to fine art because there is that other, kind of a conflict between function, whereas fine art can just be concerned with aesthetic principles. And then industrial art, yeah, I mean, certainly in Italy, the divisions between kind of design and art aren't very distinct. You know, everyday objects are really very well designed. Certainly here in Milan, there's a big tradition of, you know, bringing artistic values to the everyday, to furniture, to, you know, everything, you know, cutlery, tableware, furnishings, objects that you use that are functional but are also artistic. So these are, yeah, interesting questions to think about to raise. Yeah, what do you think, Martina, if you're still watching? Or anyone else? Introduce yourselves, define art. Um, I want to discuss this. So, a branch of learning or university study, especially one of the fine arts or the humanities, as music, philosophy, or literature. So, I mentioned this earlier that in universities in the Anglophone world, we separate the sciences and the arts and the humanities. And talk about doing a Bachelor of Arts, an arts degree, and you could be studying, you know, social social sciences and psychology, but it's defined as arts. So yeah, I mean it's an endlessly versatile word in English, and I think also in Italian and in most languages, because I think it's very important, whatever way you look at it, however interested you are. I think art is part of everyone's life in a certain way. Certainly, all of these definitions, it's hard to avoid all of these implications that this one word has. So, our next slide, places of art. There are many alternatives to the expansive famous art museums. Here are some examples. So here I would very much, if you're unsure of one of these, I'll try and explain them all. But if I'm not clear or you're still unsure, please ask if you would like further description of one of these places' locations. And I mean, the locations of art are very relevant to how we discuss art because, you know, it's very often in the gallery at the arts and crafts fair that we talk about art with people, with our friends, with our family, with individuals. It's a nice subject to discuss art because people have opinions, but I mean, depending on how intense someone is about art, it doesn't really tend to get as heated or argumentative as things like politics or religion can. But it's still very engaging, very interesting subject, and one that's interesting to discuss. So the places of art. So with artisan shops. So what is an artisan? And what is an art? How is an artisan different to an artist? Again, another interesting question, but I think an artisan is someone a bit closer to craft than art. So an artisan is creating something, I would say usually along a traditional or artistic um, lines. So I would say creating something functional with a functional along traditional lines with an artistic motivation. That's what I'm going to say. So I think we talk about artisanal very often when we talk about food, artisanal food. You have in Milan, there's a very big artisanal food fair um, once a year. So, like I said, they create something functional. So, I mean, food has a function. Also, things like artisanal furniture, artisanal clothes. It's it's things that work that have a function. But very often there is a personal artistic expression, often a lot of tradition, and often not using very modern or contemporary methods, things that tend to be homemade, created without chemicals, not industrial. That certainly applies to food, also with clothing and things like that. Something specific, you could be creating a piece of furniture, you could be creating clothes, you could be creating food, but you're creating it with an artistic mindset rather than a commercial one. I would say a commercial or an industrial one. So bringing an artistic idea to a different field. And artisanal things do have commercial potential in this time. I think that increasingly we're skeptical about industrial products and we want something more personal, more authentic. So yeah, artisan work, artisanal work. Open air museums. I think we have an example here in a park with hedge sculptures. So sculptures clipped into the The foliage, the greenery, very interesting. Work, very impressive. Yeah, I mean, open air museums. The combination of nature and art is something that is becoming increasingly significant, I think, in the ways that you can make a venue, which is a chance. Because I think a lot of people like to go to a museum or to do something cultural kind of as a relaxation, as a break from work. And if they can combine that with the open air, I think it attracts a lot of people because otherwise, with their free time, a lot of people like to relax by going to the countryside, by going to the park. So if you can bring those together, I think that you have a combination that's very attractive to people, myself included, very much. Arts and crafts fairs. So yeah, I was talking about artisan, and for me, craft is similar to artisanal, but anything that's a craft is less professional. An artisan is someone who specializes, who is in a way an expert, making beer, making furniture, making instruments. It's more of a hobby when you're talking about arts and crafts. A lot of people, maybe they don't want to make a career of art, but it's a nice thing for them to have as a hobby. They like to paint, they like to draw, they like to make sculptures, collage, anything. I think for a lot of people, it's a nice way to relax and express yourself because very often in our jobs we don't have a way to express ourselves. So it's a big world of hobbies, and with that come fairs where you can buy things and exchange ideas. Then you have galleries, which are traditional spaces where art is hung. So you have museums with historic art, you have galleries with contemporary or modern art, and you also have kind of commercial galleries where they sell the work. You have some of them are public, some of them are private. You have a large variety of institutions and kinds of art represented by galleries, but generally speaking, galleries will deal with fine art. They will deal with those traditional sculptures, paintings. Now we talk a lot about installations because art, sometimes you have something which is not really a sculpture or a painting, and we don't really know how to talk about it. So we talk about an installation, a piece, a an expression, something conceptual. Auction houses are an institution where you sell art through auction. So through a process of competitive bidding, going once, going twice. I bid $10,000, I bid 10,500. That kind of very lively bidding atmosphere that you get in an auction house. And auction houses are very relevant for the world of art because so often nobody knows how to value art. It could be worth anything. You know, it transcends its material value because you take paint, you put it on a canvas. If the art is good enough, it can accumulate millions and millions of dollars in value. And certainly we're seeing that the art world is constantly, there's new records being broken every day. It's a very, very healthy industry, a healthy market where people are really investing in art. When people have money, they seem to want to spend it on art for some reason or another. It's a world of where there's a lot of value. Sculpture parks, which would be similar to kind of an open air museum, but I think in Italy, a lot of parks would have kind of sculptures and art present throughout. I know in Rome, certainly, there's a lot of parks with sculptures, and Florence as well, I remember. Here in Milan, I don't think we have any park with sculptures, but things like fountains are a very public expression of art. And pop-up museums, so not permanent. Anything that's pop-up is temporary, not permanent. Talk a lot about pop-up shops. It's there for a period, a week, a few days, not permanent. Yeah, so please tell me, what do you visit? Martina or any of the rest of you who are watching, we have a few people tuning in. What what do you like to do? Do you enjoy art museums for auctions, sculpture parks, pop-up museums, anything? What do they have in your city? I'm curious to know. I know Bologna has a very important art fair, contemporary art, I think, and a lot of different fairs happening in Bologna, a bit of a cultural center, as very many cities in Italy are. So, this is a very good slide. This is some vocabulary which can be very useful for you. So, art vocabulary. So, these are some of them are adjectives, some of them are nouns, some of them we'll go through them one by one. I will outline the meanings, I will give you example sentences. And what I want you to do while I'm doing that is, what do you think of this painting? Jackson Pollock's Autumn Rhythm. Maybe try and use some of these words. Think about this painting. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? I want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions. So, exquisite. Exquisite is something which is sublime. It's an adjective. It's wonderful. It's sublime. It's really fine. It's generally expensive, or a lot of craft, a lot of time, a lot of resources. Just really wonderful. Really perfect, exquisite. I would say a kind of elegance, not something very rough or expressive, something much more refined, exquisite. A lot of classical art could be called exquisite. Kind of modern art, yeah, some people would call it exquisite. Exquisite is not the word I would go for if I was trying to describe autumn rhythm. It doesn't really work because it's exquisite seems to be related to elegance and refinement. So three words that I would say are similar: sublime, elegant, or refined. First rate. This is a very generic thing. You could apply this to many fields, and it just means really top quality, um, the top level of production of quality. You could have a first-rate painting. You could have a first-rate sandwich. Just anything that's really the best it could be, the best of the best. Top quality, best of the best. Then we have blemish. A blemish, a noun, is a mark or spot. You talk about a blemish on the skin. It's blemished, it's marked. There is a mark on your skin. I have a blemish, an imperfection. A mark, I think a blemish would come into kind of modern art where they want to be subversive or unusual, where they try and kind of create some kind of blemish on the perfection, the exquisite quality of classical art. They're not trying to be perfect. They want that imperfection, that spot. So you could say it depends a bit on the painting for that one. You couldn't apply it to all that many paintings, but you could say the artist creates a kind of a blemish-like effect in this painting by disturbing the sense of equilibrium and perfection that the composition will otherwise have, if you can follow all of those words. Please, I know I'm using a lot of fairly advanced and complicated language. It's something I studied in university. I know a lot of words to discuss this subject. So if there's anything that you're not following or not sure about, absolutely 110% let me know. Detrimental. Something to be detrimental to. You talk about to be detrimental, it's to have a negative effect. It was detrimental to her happiness. It would be a very negative thing to say about a painting, to say that it's detrimental to art and to the quality of art. Some people would think that modernism, modern art, is detrimental to the quality, to the integrity of traditional art. It's something that has made it negative. Inadequate is not good enough. This is maybe something your art teacher would say to you. Your effort was inadequate. It's not something we really say about art in museums, because now, we don't really judge things in very strict or precise ways. But you could talk about, inadequate effort, inadequate. For you, it's inadequate. It's not good enough. It should be better. Abstract. Not figurative. Nothing is represented. Shapes or colors. Shapes or colors. So Jackson Pollock's Autumn Rhythm is an abstract work. There is no person, no object, no landscape. It is an abstract composition. The artist has created an image just with shapes and colors and lines. There's no attempt to capture the world as we see it. A collector's item. A collector's item. So it's a very positive thing to say about a piece of art. I would say a particularly good example. The style. And I mean, a particularly good or a particularly fine example, good or fine. I mean, think about what a collector does. They have to find, they want to have the best collection. They want to represent different styles, and they want to have good examples. So a collector's item is a work that is a good example of its style. It's not necessarily the best work of art. It's just thinking about it from a collector's point of view. This is valuable on the market. It has a value to collectors. A masterpiece, a perfect work. An artist's best work. This is, I think, the greatest compliment you can possibly pay to a painting, to any piece of art. To describe it as a masterpiece, I think very few paintings really fall under this category of being a masterpiece. Because we talk about masters, we talk about the old masters who kind of set the standards of being a great artist. And if it's a masterpiece, it's like them. It's, you know, it's like a Velasquez, it's like a Vermeer, it's like a Rembrandt. It's a masterpiece. Retrospective. This is a kind of exhibition. It's an exhibition dealing with the life work of an artist. So from the beginning to the end of their life, a retrospective. So, you know, you could talk about the Van Gogh retrospective. Any exhibition which tries to capture the entire developments of an artist's career. Sketch, rough, drawing, improvised, and quickly produced. Oh, a typo there with produced. I think you know how to spell it anyway. Yeah, a rough drawing, improvised, quickly produced, often something that will inspire a finished painting. You know, just an immediate reaction to something that you see or something that you feel. An installation, I mentioned this before. Um, an installation is a three-dimensional piece which isn't a traditional sculpture. So it could be a video, it could be lights. If you're talking about Tracy Emin, it could be her bed. You know, it could be anything. It could be Brillo pads like Andy Warhol exhibited. It could be anything. Now, I mean, artists will exhibit anything, and because we still think about a sculpture in terms of being, you know, the transformation of a material like stone or bronze into either a figure or an abstract composition and shape. If you aren't really doing that and you're just, you know, creating something with light or with collage or something like that that has three dimensions, you would call it an installation. And it's very much a buzzword of the moment. Priceless is impossibly valuable. So something like the Mona Lisa is priceless. It's impossible to price. It has so much cultural value that, you know, you could pay anything for it. It's impossible to talk about in concrete terms of having value. And this is something which happens to a lot of art because the value is in the concept and the cultural significance more so than the material value. Curator, a professional who arranges exhibitions. Arranges the spaces, exhibition spaces. So it decides what paintings to put in what rooms, what they want to say with the arrangement. It's certainly something that they think a lot about, a lot more than you would realize just walking through the gallery. Worthless, opposite of priceless, has no value. It's worthless. It's not any good. And if you're talking about something being worthless in reference to art, it would be because it's not a good painting. It's worthless. To me, it's worthless. It's not good. It doesn't have the value that a great piece of art should. So none of the few of you that are watching have any opinions about Jackson Pollock that you want to share. Personally, I don't really know what to think of this painting. I think it's one that maybe you have to see in person. I would be skeptical about it. There is some abstract art that I appreciate and I enjoy, but for me, maybe it's not really a masterpiece. It's not exquisite. It doesn't have that quality of traditional art that's really, you can immediately see why it's so wonderful. So, your opinion, we have some more questions, and I'd really like you to answer. Where did you go, Martina? You said hi earlier, and I haven't heard from you since. Don't worry about saying anything interesting. Just say what you think, say what you feel. So, your opinion, do you prefer visual or performing arts? Oh, haven't really ever thought about that. I think visual arts. I love performing arts as well. I love theater and music and things like that, of course. But I mean, for me, visual art, I mean, when you look at a painting in a museum, you can really, think about things. It's quiet, it's relaxing. I think, like many people, the relaxation appeals to me. I think a lot of us work and have to worry about things other than what's beautiful, so that when we have the chance to just worry about art, we appreciate having that chance. Do you have a favorite time period of art? Is there any period you can't stand? So, can't stand, I'm sure you'll remember, is really negative. You cannot bear it. You cannot enjoy it. It's really awful, indescribably unsupportable. You cannot be in the same room as this kind of art. Um, I like what we would call modernism, early 20th century art. So, modernism is a general term. It covers lots of different kinds of art. So, cubism, surrealism, fauvism. The list goes on and on. Abstraction, very many different ideas and types of art. And artists like Picasso, um, Matisse, these kind of artists. For me, it has a kind of a. I enjoy it because it has the sort of the level of craft and dedication that traditional art does, and it is visually appealing and beautiful. But it's as interesting as contemporary art. Because for me, sometimes very traditional art, maybe it's not that interesting, it doesn't feel very relevant, and maybe contemporary art just isn't very beautiful, it isn't very exquisite. And for me, the early 20th century modernism, it's a nice bridge between these two periods. There isn't any period I can't stand. Sometimes some contemporary art I find difficult to appreciate. Because contemporary art, it could be anything. You could be doing anything. Some of it is wonderful, some of it is really very questionable. It just depends. So I won't say that there's something I really can't stand. I'm open to trying and seeing anything and forming an opinion. When traveling, does your trip involve a stop at a museum? Yes. I don't think I've ever gone to a city without visiting all of the museums. Well, not all of them, but the major ones are the ones that interest me. I've gone to cities because I'm interested in the museum or work there. I mean, this is something that I studied in university. It's a big passion in my life, but I think, I mean, most people, it's a big aspect of tourism when you go to a city, especially when you go on a city break. I mean, it's one thing if you go on a beach holiday, there probably won't be an art museum. But if you go to any city, there'll be a major art museum, and it's something to do. And I think it's a wonderful way to get a sense of the city, a character of the city. I think it can really express what kind of a place it is, the kind of art that they make, the kind of attitudes they have to culture. It's very interesting. It's an insight into the kind of place you're visiting. Have you been to all your local places of art? Um, I don't think I've been to every place of art in Milan. I don't think that would be possible. Milan is a very artistic city. There's a lot of very active artistic venues all over the city, galleries, exhibition spaces, permanent, not permanent, commercial, private. You have a lot of fairs in Milan as well. It's very difficult to keep up with all the culture in the city. And I mean, I don't try. I've gone to very many museums here and very many different cultural places, and I enjoy the fact that there always seems to be something new, even after many months here. I'm still discovering the city and discovering everything that there is to see here. This time, do you agree? So we have just statements now, and we agree or we disagree. We say, yes, I think so, no, I don't think so. Modern art is not real art. No, I disagree. My definition of art includes, I agree with Martina, even if I don't like it, it doesn't mean that it's not real art. It's about expression, and it's a kind of expression, all art, contemporary art included. So, I'm not going to decide what is or isn't art. An upside down toilet is not a work of art. So Marcel Duchamp um, made a urinal. He was one of the first artists to ever do something like this, and he didn't sign his own name actually, he signed an invented name, and he said, "This is a piece of art I've created." It was a urinal, it was a kind of toilet, and it was very controversial. And almost nobody thought it was a piece of art then. Now it's considered very ahead of its time, very pioneering because it's what people do. For me, I don't think it's a good piece of art, but I think it's a piece of art. I think it's if it's in a museum, if someone has created it, it's a piece of art. I don't fight it on that front. I think, yeah, sure. I mean, it's expression. It's something that's created. Art isn't important. No, I disagree totally. I think in some ways we value art more than ever. In other ways, I don't think we value art enough. I think we place a lot of emphasis on technology and science and business, especially when it comes to what you study. A lot of people were very skeptical about, I know a lot of people were very skeptical about the idea of studying art history when I did. And I think we have to understand just how valuable art is. I don't think we do. Art is only for rich people. No, I totally disagree. I think art is for everyone. And I think there's a lot of snobbery in art. But I think whatever art you enjoy it, put it in your home. I don't think anyone doesn't have some art in their home, from the poorest to the richest people. It might not be, original, very valuable paintings. It might just be reproductions, but it's art. It's what you think looks nice. And yeah, it's for everyone. Children should spend much more time at school painting. I think, I'm not sure about Italy, but certainly when I was a child, there was a lot of time for us to do art. It wasn't something everyone could do, and it isn't. I think it's valuable for everyone to try. Like, it's valuable for everyone to learn science and maths, even though it's not their talent. It's to try, to experiment, and to open your mind to understand that perspective. Everyone is an artist. Uh, they could be. I do think you need talent. You need a perspective. You need capacity with creating visual ideas. that not everyone has. So no, I disagree. You need to be crazy to become an artist. No, I do think that sometimes the best artists are the crazy ones. There are some great artists who weren't so crazy, but I think that, yeah, maybe there are more crazy ones than not so crazy ones. Real artist paintings by Renoir and Picasso. Yeah, I mean, I like paintings by Renoir and Picasso, but I think the implication is that other art is not real art, which, as I've said before, I don't really think. So, with that defense of modern art, we finish. We're finished for time. I hope those of you who tuned in enjoyed this. It was very much just me talking about something that I enjoy. But if you're watching back, um, I hope you can try and use this vocabulary. I like this vocabulary a lot of different and interesting words that are definitely sort of specific to this context. And yeah, try and remember these words, practice these words. Have a good evening and see you in a different webinar, I guess. Bye bye.